Hello everybody and welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Maria. Thank you for joining me. I am your astrologer. Welcome to the weekly astro weather for my channel. Thanks for tuning in. Those of you guys who are new to my channel, please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that bell button below so you get alerts as to when I put out new videos. Every week we do a little bit of like an update of what's going on in the cosmos, some of the biggest transits to be watching for, and how it's going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs. Yeah, I'm glad to be back. This is kind of like a in-between video. We are coming into Scorpio season. The sun just recently moved into Scorpio, and next week we're going to get really deep into the astrology of November, and I'm going to give you all the insights as to what to expect. I didn't quite feel like it was the right time to do that yet, so it'll technically come out probably either on the 31st or on the 1st of November, primarily because there's just so much stuff that's happening this week in between. I don't want to cram it all into one video. So hopefully this is helpful for you guys. Just a little bit about some of the themes of this week, probably the two bigger transits that I have isolated and kind of picked, although there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of moon transits this week that are going to make things happen. Is definitely the Venus square Neptune, followed by the Sun square Saturn. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, how that may materialize for you, and how it's really setting up for cutting through confusion, distortion, issues revolving relationships, love, finances. So it's kind of got some sweet and salty aspects. Certainly whenever you're dealing with Venus squares, it's going to pertain to how we relate. But when you're dealing with Neptune, things get a little fuzzy and hard to see. So I'm going to break down the transits day by day for you guys and let you know what to expect. Definitely a good time to get out like a pen, paper, pull out your calendar. And at the end of the video, we'll talk a little bit about how this is going to affect each and every one of you guys, and I'll pull some tarot cards, so stay tuned for that. So let's go ahead and get started with today. Maybe some of you guys have noticed I've gotten some really positive feedback. People seem to really like getting the weekly videos on Sundays, so I'm kind of doing my best to get these out early for you guys. So we'll start with what's going on for today, October 24th, 2021. The moon in Venus opposes Sagittarius, Venus in Sagittarius now, so I'm actually a big fan of like the Venus moon opposition. It can be really sweet, right? It can give us a sense of nurturing, loving kind of kindness. And it's fun when it's in these mutable signs because it gives us the opportunity, I think, to be changeable. It gives us also the opportunity when the moon is in Gemini to communicate, to express, and it reaches across to Venus and Sagittarius and talks about the bigger picture when it comes to love and romance. So I am a bit of a fan of that. Not too crazy about the square that's going on today though to Neptune, and that seems to be the theme intermittently this whole week. Actually, the transits on Sunday today are going to start building and giving you the feeling of this Venus square Neptune that we'll be dealing with in a couple of days. However, there's some other sweetness. You've got Jupiter that is in a trine to the moon in Gemini, and it's also in a trine to Mars. So lots of communication energy. Today's a fun time to just be able to kind of connect with other people, share ideas, spend time together. It's an overall pretty decent day. Can't really complain. Now the sun is in Scorpio. Yay, Scorpio season. Those of you guys who are Scorpios, happy birthday. If you are a Scorpio sun, rising, or moon, this is going to be a positive energy for you because the sun is highlighting that personal aspect or that personal angle or planet in your life. So if it's your sun, you're getting into your birthday season. There is going to be new beginnings happening, especially after this new moon that we're going to have in Scorpio next week. If it's your rising sign, it's really highlighting your appearance, your vitality, your energy. You might kind of notice that all of a sudden you come back online and you feel like you just have more energy. You can get more stuff done. There may be like more of a radiance to you. There may be more of a sense of people noticing you. You might just be kind of carrying yourself with just a little bit more vavoom, you know? And for the moon, the sun and the moon contact is really nice. In theory, I kind of see this as like a new moon in your birth chart. So it can really shine a light on your inner emotional world, what's going on in a domestic sense, things like that. But yeah, so we're in Scorpio season. Tomorrow on the 26th, we're going to see that the moon in Gemini really fully stays in that trine with Mars in Libra and Jupiter in Aquarius. So in a way, like today into tomorrow is great for getting things done. It's very active, at least until the moon goes into Cancer. If you have to send an email, have a phone call, reach out to somebody, schedule a meeting, doing it either Sunday or the very early hours of Monday is ideal. Later in the morning, though, we do see that the moon begins to move into Cancer, so we kind of start to lose that, okay? On the 26th, we see that Venus in Sag comes into a square with Neptune in Pisces. And so this is going to be the big thing that I'm kind of like, focusing on this week. Is going to be this square. So when we break down the two archetypally, Venus, love, relationships, values, money, it can also deal with aesthetics, beauty, right? And Venus is doing okay. I think she's a little happier being in Sagittarius, having moved out of Scorpio and now being far enough away from the South Node that she needs freedom. Venus in Sag needs the ability to kind of take off, run, go and do what they need to do, make connections, experience culture, diversity, and be able to have the freedom to come back home. So it's kind of love that should be untethered, right? What I'm finding interesting, though, is not just the square to Neptune. So Venus in a square to Neptune brings up things like distortion with love, values, sometimes victim mentality, feelings of insecurity, unrealistic views of other people, disappointments, wah wah. It's kind of like that build up moment to where all the smoke and mirrors and having put somebody or something on a pedestal starts to break down. So right when she starts coming out of this square to Neptune and she starts coming closer, I actually believe, to Pluto, which we will have in December, we are going to start to kind of realize what may not stick, what may not work for us, what we no longer value, what needs to change, transform, or break down. Right now, it's kind of hard to see. Yes, this is an important transit, especially if you are a mutable sign anywhere from 18 to 22 degrees. So if you have any particular placements there, you're going to feel this square a little bit harder. Just my own personal opinions, when I think about it, like Virgo risings are going to have a harder time with this. Pisces rising may have a challenging time with this. Sag rising. So, I mean, really all the mutable placements, especially if it's on an angular house, is going to get hit harder. But if you have a personal sign within 18 to 22, you're going to feel it. Now, I don't often talk about asteroids, but in this case, I'm going to do it because it's just like screaming at me. But Venus is coming into a conjunction with Juno. So in astrology, Juno represents the good wife, right? So it can represent partnership, devotion, marriage, marital partners, things like that. With this conjunction, I call this a Cinderella transit. So when Venus conjuncts Juno, it can be really sweet. It can be omens of marriages, partnerships, mergers, proposals, weddings, like all of these things that are getting ready to set up, especially if you have any planets, personal planets that are within these degrees of Sagittarius, or if this is your Juno, you're experiencing your Juno return, which will be conjunct Venus, so it can be some kind of precursor or suggestion, depending on the Juno return chart, that there may be partnership in the future for you as a result of this transit. So in that sense, it's sweet, right? I look at the conjunction to Juno. Juno really, really, really loves Jupiter because they're married and they're creating a sextile to Jupiter in Aquarius. So wedding season is a thing. Maybe it's just like there's been delays and like lots of people have had to delay their weddings this year because of COVID or even last year. So we may just see a wave of like this uptick of that, just like in the next month or two, between now and really, I would say like before Venus leaves Sagittarius. So probably by mid-November is kind of the feeling that I'm getting. From what I hear, there's not really a lot of weddings that take place around December anyway because of the holidays, but I could be wrong. We'll see. The other thing that I would say is that in polarity to this, we have seen both Ceres, the goddess of the earth, and dealing with crops and also sometimes separation, isolation, depression, has been kind of in opposition to Juno for a little while here. So on one hand of the chart, we've got the weddings and the wives and the partnership. On the other hand, we've got separation, isolation. We've got Lilith also that's conjunct Ceres. So I kind of see it as being like the mistresses, right? So there's a lot of energy here in this chart that's talking a lot about separation, other partnerships, the second path, second choices, choosing one person over another, people kind of getting hurt feelings because people are repartnering, remarrying, you know, kind of moving on. So those of you guys who are going through that, or those of you guys who are like big followers even of like the twin flame movement, I'm not a twin flame reader, that's not my bag. However, I do look at this and go, yeah, there's something to this energy, at least all the way through Sag season, where there's going to be a lot of people that are really adapting to changes in relationships and really kind of looking at their partnerships to other people. And if there's any issues, especially pertaining to infidelity or partnerships on the side or things like that, this Venus-Neptune square is definitely going to kind of rock and rattle and roll, especially when we get into Sag season and we see that both the sun and Mars gets closer and closer to Sagittarius and activates these eclipse points, which can represent a tearing or a severing or a separation of partnerships, and whether or not people are being forthcoming, honest, if they're giving misleading information, if they're concealing relationships, things like that. So that can come up. This is kind of the precursor also to the Venus retrograde. So just be mindful of that if you've got some of those placements in your chart. On the more positive side of the Venus square Neptune is kind of lustful, dreamy, creative, adventurous, fun. It's very changeable though. So when I think about the conversation that Sagittarius has to Pisces, is Sagittarius wants to talk about the bigger picture, the spiritual love, the union, right? Ninth house does rule ceremonies, so it can be about rituals revolving around partnerships and bringing people together. And where we are opting more for a higher vibration of love, can it be self-sacrificial? Possibly. Can there be a sense of opting for more privacy in our relationships and not feeling like we have to just constantly be putting our lives on the internet and showing every intimate aspect of our partnerships with the world, especially when we think of Neptune rules mirrors, screens, televisions, anything that we take photos of. So there's definitely like some like static in the air revolving around whether or not people are feeling seen, or whether or not committed relationships are real if they are not being portrayed online in a positive manner, whether or not relationships are what they seem, right? So we think about also people that can be putting a lot of like relationship, I call it relationship PR on the internet, and if that relationship really is as good as it looks. So keep in mind, like there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in this next week. Not everything is going to be what you think it is. Outside of just the relationship realm, we also want to look out for distortion in actual images, right? Where things can be manipulated, sound, screens. I think of like, you know, where people are going and changing their faces in particular videos, and there can be videos or information and things that start kind of coming into circulation that may not be truthful. It may be intentionally distorted. So that's something that you want to look for, especially in international news when we're talking about Sagittarius or the legal system, the court system, things that are intentionally being concealed, manipulated, especially pertaining to immigration, borders, you know, people who are in between countries. We can't talk about Neptune without talking about, you know, separation, people who are lost, people who go overlooked. So we also might hear in the news in this next week a lot of stuff pertaining to pending missing person cases, or cases that involve some major legal themes and immigration and how we're handling some of the border issues globally. So watch out for that. Then we get to Wednesday, the 27th, and that is when the moon in Cancer moves to oppose Pluto in Capricorn. Now, listen, we have this transit once a month. We go through that moon Pluto, oh, this is breaking down, this isn't working, once a month. So it's not unusual for this transit. Where it's unusual, in my opinion, is that we still have Mars in Libra, and it's not happy there. And Mars is getting up to the final degrees of Libra, and it's been my experience, both in transits, but also in natal aspects, that when we have moving planets, especially heavy hitters like Pluto, Mars, Saturn, Uranus, in the late degrees of Libra, relationships break down. So if you are somebody who has cardinal placements anywhere from 20 to 29 degrees of the cardinal signs, pay attention. Especially if you have a Libra, or I would even say an Aries placement. It's almost like we're still feeling the effects of the full moon. I didn't even talk about that in my opening. I probably should have, but like, holy cow, that was probably the most intense full moon that we've had this year, and it wasn't even an eclipse. But you'll get a little snippet of whatever you experienced during the full moon in Aries that we had this last week, because the moon's coming in and ushering in that change, and it's trying to say, hey, we need to take action in relationships. Do we cut and do we sever it? Do we move forward? Do we commit further? So it's almost like there's this real leveling up in our relationships taking place in the next week or so, and suddenly it's going to become real when planets move fully into Scorpio and we see that merger, that transformation, that blending, because Scorpio wants to merge, it wants to become one, kind of like Pisces, but this is more in like a financial, sexual kind of energy. So you may feel the tension building right around the 27th because the Mars, Pluto, Moon square that's taking place, the focal point is actually the moon because it's the fastest moving planet. So when the moon's in Cancer, it does well there, but it's going to kind of show us where our emotions are kind of getting ready to bubble up, and we finally open up about something, or we share something, or we react in an emotional way, and we start some kind of movement because Cardinal wants to initiate. So look for that on the 27th of the week. On the 28th, on Thursday, we've got Venus in Sag in now a sextile to Jupiter in Aquarius. So like the sweetness I was talking about, that sextile is an exact sextile, but it will be kind of in motion for the better part of like about a 2 or a 3 day period. So watch as that kind of opens up. Sextiles are harmonious energy. You have to actually do the work. You have to work it. So as Venus is coming into the sextile with Jupiter, it can be things like positive plans for traveling, meeting with friends, people coming into town, visiting, expanding our knowledge, revolving around friendships, culture, community, all of the things that Sag and Aquarius love. So that can be like a nice sweet day. It's a really great opening for the weekend of Halloween. I think it's really going to set up for what can be quite some fun parties. If people are going to be going to parties or having parties, I think that that's going to be kind of cool. And then on Friday the 29th, this is going to be a day. So the moon in Leo moves into opposition with both first Saturn and then also Jupiter. So off the bat, the moon-Saturn opposition is like the restriction, we can't do something, we have trouble connecting, and then when it comes into the opposition with Jupiter, it will expand. However, I want you guys to really pay attention to the energy this day. This is one of the first times, at least with the this year, that we've got planets in Scorpio, and we've also got some kind of movement in Leo that's going to create what will be the grand fixed cross. So if you guys look at the chart, the moon in opposition to Saturn, the moon square Uranus, the sun in Scorpio, holy fixed squares, guys. This is going to be a day where we're going to really start to feel change happen. And whenever we're looking at where the sun is, we want to look at what's going on with the ruling planets, right? So sun's in Scorpio. The sun in Scorpio represents change, transformation, going deeper, uncovering the shadow self, looking in the closet, seeing what's going on in the shadows. It's about passion, it's about connection, but it's also about psychological triggers, right? Sun in Scorpio represents the 8th house, which is the shadow self, and it can be harder to shine a light on those things. So Scorpios may be more of your friend this season. You may find that the Scorpios that are acting out the most are kind of actually uncovering and shining a light on what can't be seen, or, if you'd have to have a really strong Scorpio placement to understand it. But if you have a Pluto moon, if you have a Scorpio sun or a rising, or if you have an 8th house stellium, you function different in the world, right? You can be walking around and, out at a farmer's market, and you see people who are shopping and buying flowers and food and hanging out and petting animals. But Scorpios, or really Plutonian people, are the ones who are going to spot the drug deal on the corner. They're going to be the ones that are going to see somebody who's like kind of acting shady, maybe trying to break into cars. Like, they just have this natural sense of seeing what's going on behind the scenes. Some people think it's paranoia, and it can be certainly, but watch for more Plutonian themes this month, and where people are really showing their true colors, or where people are uncovering things which can really disrupt the masses. Now, the sun in Scorpio has us focus and really looking at both Mars and Pluto. I look at both, even though I'm a modern astrologer. I think it's important to definitely see what's happening with both of these placements. And at the time when the moon goes into Leo, it's squaring the sun. Mars is at 29 degrees, so it's going to be like this really kind of intense energy that's going to take really until about the 30th, maybe the 31st, for it to break through. So we know that when a planet is at 29 degrees, it's the excess of that degree, and it feels like we're rushed, or we're having to rush into something, or something has to happen very quickly. It's a make or break moment. Certainly for the weekend of Halloween, it can be a really definitive time in relationships, and there can be a lot of people getting upset, or there being ultimatums like, you know, you told me you were staying home and hanging out watching movies, and I saw you all over Instagram with a bunch of your friends and other girls type of stuff. So there can be some sense of people getting a little rowdy, people getting a little upset, revolving around whether or not people are being fair. Now, don't mess around with the moon, with Mars at 29 degrees. Those of you guys who have planets in the late degrees of the cardinal signs, move slowly, be aware of your environment, be aware of where you're going, where you're moving around. Certainly Mars in any angle to Pluto, but especially when it's in the late degrees of a sign, can be more accident prone. So while you're going out, partying, having a good time this weekend, just be mindful of what's going on around you. Be mindful of when you're in transit, when you're driving. Don't be driving under the influence, anything like that, especially with some of the squares that we're having to Neptune, okay? But yeah, just wholly fixed square. It's just, the whole day is just gonna feel like you're grinding gears, because there's gonna be so many opposing and squaring energies that they're not all quite reconciling. So there's gonna be something different, or some kind of way of adapting that's gonna take place over the weekend. On the 30th of the month, on Saturday, Mars finally enters Scorpio. Awesome. That I like. Mars is what rules Scorpio, as does Pluto. We've seen a similar theme happening all through October, where Mars and the Sun have been moving closely together. Now, it's a totally different energy when the Sun and Mars are both in Scorpio. When it was in Libra, it was more friendly, it was fair, it was about balance. Yeah, we got a couple checks from Pluto, but it's like now the gloves come off. Really, like really, really. Sun and Mars is hot, it burns, it cuts, it can be very intense, it can be very passionate, but it can also be very angry when it's in Scorpio. So we need a lot of outlet for that energy. And we're building into also the squares that we are going to start seeing with Saturn and Jupiter and Aquarius, and the oppositions to Uranus. So Scorpio season has notoriously been spooky the last couple of years because of the shocks from Uranus and the opposition to the personal planets in Scorpio. But this day, Mars enters Scorpio, the moon in Leo opposes Jupiter, so it's fun, and the sun comes into a square with Saturn. So I see that as some people that might be like Debbie Downers about partying, some people that are weird about being around other people. I could also see this as a bit of like, especially in relationships, because this is happening at a 7, where there's like a bit of like a speed bump, or a breakdown, or a delay, or a disappointment. So Sun square Saturn can kind of squash the fun. I think the positive thing is that Moon in opposition to Jupiter does say that there is still going to be get-togethers, celebrations, having fun, but there is still going to be limitations to that. So it's like, you go to the haunted house and everybody's got the plastic in front of their face, right? So it's like you're still celebrating, but it's not as fun as it could be. Or, you're going to the Halloween parties and everybody's wearing a mask, but you're still at a party. Right? So there's going to be a bit of like sweet and salty kind of going on at that time. Finally, the week finishes off with Halloween, so the 31st, with the sun at an 8, definitely kind of spooky. We're finally coming out of the square with Saturn, and now we start to feel the sun come into an opposition with Uranus. Now next week we're going to have a new moon, and that new moon is going to be opposed Uranus. So there are shocking surprises in store for us at the beginning of November. We'll talk about that next week, but this is an interesting day. Moon in Virgo, moon opposes Neptune, coming into a square with Venus. Definitely makes me kind of feel like there's lots of illusions. Word to the wise, be careful with food and drink. Like, I'm not one of those like crazy, like woke moms that's like, check your kids' Halloween candy. But like, this makes me feel like drinks could be spiked. People could get, you know, potentially, if they're not watching their drinks, like roofied with the moon in opposition to Neptune square Venus. Can you trust things that you're being given that you can eat or drinks? Is it healthy? You know, some people might get kind of paranoid about being around people if they feel like, you know, they could be sick. And any exchanges, especially romantic or maybe even sexual, is it something that could last? There is some sense of needing to use real discretion when the moon is in Virgo and really analyzing things and looking at it and going like, is this going to work? Now, on the flip side, it can be a really great time to like watch movies, you know, be creative, get artistic with that Neptune square. But really, like I've told you guys before, the further that we get into Scorpio season, it's like the gloves come off, all of the energy is really going to start to change. We're about 2-3 weeks away from coming into eclipses, and we're going to have the very first eclipse of this new nodal cycle that's going to be in Taurus. So I'm working on that video. I'm going to try to get that out a little early for you guys before the transit hits mid-month. But we're just going to start really feeling the change and feeling where the sun and Mars is coming into these oppositions with Uranus, which is twists of fate, shocking changes, especially pertaining to values, what's mine versus what's yours, whether or not we're open to merging, whether or not we share, and the squares both to Saturn and Jupiter, which shows how collectively we're changing the way that we look at security, we're changing the way that we spend money, how we invest, how we save, and what really is important for us and what we need for security. That's always a theme in Scorpio. So it's just all these planets are going to kind of get banged up very similarly to how we had it in Leo season, in Taurus season, and Aquarius season. And every 3 months there is a significant change. Now realize that next year, when we come back into Aquarius season, similarly to spring of 2021, we'll have a ton of planets in Aquarius. We're also going to have a Mercury retrograde that will drop down from Aquarius into Capricorn. And then we will see the nodes immediately square Saturn. So all year it's been trying to kind of get us to get with the program. So that way, in preparation for 2022, when we have some bigger changes or some bigger limitations or some bigger responsibilities, Saturn is the Lord of Karma. He says it's time. You have to show up and do this thing. Keep in the back of your mind that every change, even though it's uncomfortable, even though it's scary this year, has been the setup for us being able to kind of answer the call to both Saturn and Jupiter's karma and fate. So for right now, Jupiter is direct, hanging out in the same sign as Aquarius. I would say that all of the more difficult changes, the scary things, the chances that we take are giving us the opportunity to really come into a new way of being, a new life. So try to kind of keep that optimism in the back of your mind. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about how it's going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs, this Venus-Neptune square. So I'm going to talk to you first about which house Venus is in and which house Neptune is in and how that square may play out for you. And I will pull a card to let you know what I see coming, because I hear that you guys like the tarot reading aspect. So I'm going to try to do that with most of my videos. Let me know, how are the squares playing out in your chart? I'm also interested to hear, how did the full moon go for you guys? It felt like an eclipse and it still feels like it's lingering. Ah! All right, so let's start with Aries. Aries, Venus is in Sag in your 9th house, which is highlighting the opportunity for love at a distance, travel, getting together with other people, your spiritual beliefs, the opportunity for you to invest in higher mind subjects, taking courses, certifications, teaching, spending on vacations, all of that stuff. Now here's the deal. You've got Venus in your 9th, but you've got Neptune in your 12th. So that tells me that be mindful when it comes to investing in what might be spiritual or metaphysical programs. Be really aware of all the details and all of the facts when it comes to traveling, investing in travel, purchasing airplane tickets. Make sure that you double and triple check all of the dates. Be aware and cautious of any scams that might be about transferring money or buying things that may be at a distance. There can also be a sense of you feeling like you need to invest more into either some kind of publishing, or maybe you're looking for a mentor or a guru. If you're somebody who's dealing with a legal situation, because of the square from Venus to Neptune, you know, like get deposits, get receipts, like make sure that you know where you're sending money. Like don't get involved in some scam where somebody says, you know, send me this and I'll send you X amount of Bitcoin back, because you may not get it, right? So know where you're sending money, know your sources. And if you are traveling, because money may go missing, be very careful. You may uncover something also, that's the other way that I say that, about something pertaining to any one of these topics that was being concealed. And if you're somebody who's in a long distance relationship, make sure you're not getting catfished. All right, so what does Aries need to know for this transit? Temperance. So take your time. Balance, right? Don't rush into things, all in good timing. If you're like, oh my God, is it gonna work out? You know, are they gonna call me back? You know, when am I gonna see them? My plans got delayed, you know, or they keep moving plans around on me. Just be patient, take your time, all in good timing. This is also talking about balance in a sense of sometimes moderation, right? So moderation with your diet, moderation with whatever is going on, like not allowing yourself to fall victim into undoing patterns. That can also be Neptune in your 12th. Taurus and Taurus rising. I guess I should have said that. Listen for your rising sign and your sun sign. You can listen for your moon too, but listen for your rising sign first. Taurus, this is Venus in your 8th house, which is really great if you're looking to have like insurance payoffs, if you're wanting to pay off loans, debt. Your partner, your business partner, or your spouse may also make a lot more money as a result of this transit. It can definitely bring in bonuses, gifts, benefactors, all of these things. And it's also a really great time for like paying things off or getting ahead of like a tax situation. It's really sexy when Venus is in your 8th house too, because there can just be like a lot more time with your partner. But with the square to the 11th house, I see it as kind of like, don't get caught talking to people online and posing it as like, oh, that's just my friend, because you could have some very upset partners. Be cautious also when it comes to financial exchanges with friends. There can be a sense of like, you know, people wanting to give you things, but there's strings attached. There can be situations where maybe you paid for a friend for travel and you're like, okay, you need to make sure, you know, that you're there at this time, and the friend like overlooks details or whatever, or, you know, they bought 2 of something. So there can be miscommunications revolving around like purchases and things with friends. You also can have a bit of like confusion about joint resources and like what your goals are with joint resources. And so you can have trouble tackling a bill or paying for something because like you and a partner may not be on the same page about what something costs. Partners can withhold information about spending from you. Page of Swords. Play dumb. Play dumb. This can be basically saying like you don't have all the details yet, you don't have all the facts. You can ask questions, but this may be kind of suggesting that you get wind of something and you don't know how to talk about it, and you're just kind of like waiting for the right time to talk about it. But Page of Swords can be like, oh, you know, instead of confronting them and being confrontational like the Knight of Swords or the King of Swords, it's like being curious and asking questions and seeing if they're going to come forward with that information and like giving them the opportunity to tell you, not like just attacking them, right? But you might find like a receipt, or you might find like a small detail and you're like, what is this? You spent $900 on what? So keep your eyes out for that stuff. Gemini, this is Venus in your 7th house, which is sweet, great for relationships, great for partnerships. And it can definitely bring more opportunities for relationships towards you, right? That's very possible. But it's in a square to Neptune in your 10th. And you can be kind of going like, where is this relationship going? Like, are we on the same page? You know, they show up, they look good, but what's the catch? Like, are they gonna actually stick around? Like, is this somebody that I could see myself being with long term? Are we both, you know, being realistic with our goals for partnership? It can also be like you being in a situation where there's somebody who you connect with, but you work with them, or they're your boss, or there can be like a crush at the office and you're like, are they being nice? Or are they coming on to me? Like, and your partner can get a little jealous about that. If you're in a relationship, your partner can be like, why is Susan from accounting talking to you? Like, what the fuck's going on there? So there can be some friction between what would be a marital partner and your career. A partner can be really kind of putting the pressure on you to being like, we need to do things. We need to be, you know, going out, spending time together. And you're like, I have so much work to do. And you're spiraling because you're kind of like, I got to get all this stuff done at work. But if I don't take my boyfriend out to dinner because I haven't been spending a lot of time with him, I fear that the relationship may dissolve. So pressure between those two parts of your chart. Queen of Wands, Venus in Sag. So if you're a man watching this, it could be that there is a fire sign woman that comes into your life. If you are a woman, it can be talking about like a third party or like a fire sign woman coming in and kind of stirring the pot and creating some issues. Equally, it can be talking about you and that you're just feeling like a little bit more feisty, a little bit more fierce, that you're really feeling like passionate and really creative. You know, don't listen to this and kind of go like, oh my God, is my partner screwing around? I see it as more just taking more action and being more assertive when it comes to relationships and like cutting through that Neptune in your 10th of just getting really real about what the future looks like for you. Like, how do you want to appear out in the world? The 10th house isn't just your career. It's, are you single? Are you married? Are you partnered? You know, are you working for somebody else? Are you working for yourself? So it's kind of like your partner kind of stepping in and being like, hey, can we like, you know, make this like official, or can we, you know, do more together? And it's about you reevaluating if you want to put that out there. Cancer and Cancer rising. This is your 6th house where Venus is, which is great for health, wellness, diet, routine, meeting and connecting with people, possibly at work. That can definitely happen. Can be a really sweet time for like pets and being in better health, or adopting like new patterns or habits, or getting like a little bit better organized. It is in a square to Neptune in your 9th. So it makes me feel like there is some sense of you being like, I want to travel more for work. I want to integrate this more into my schedule. How do I do this? Or some kind of conflict revolving around work and travel. Maybe, you know, there was a trip that was supposed to be planned and that kind of fell apart. And you're like, I have so much work going on. I have to do this right now. There's work coming in. And how that actually affects whether or not you can show up for a trip or maintain travel plans, whether or not you can show up to class or a course. So there can be some conflict revolving around your schedule and like some kind of like course. So you might be feeling like you're falling behind because you don't have the time in your schedule to make that happen. There can be a conflict or an issue also revolving around a crisis that is more so coming about health-wise as a result of a lack of faith. Watch out for like quick fixes or like gurus or whatever, or like magic diet pills or things like that. That's not stuff you want to do this month. You really want to be aware of any behavior that's coming up that has to do with like addiction and like, you know, being too addicted to chocolate cake or caffeine or smoking or like whatever. Like these things can come up and there can be overly indulgence going on. The Hierophant. Interesting that Neptune's in your 9th and you have this transit in your 6th. I feel like you need advice from someone, Cancer. Like I feel like you need to talk to someone. Like you need to talk to a spiritual advisor. You need a reading. You need to talk to a therapist. You need to talk to a priest. You need to talk to that uncle that gives you really good life advice. Like there's something like that that has to happen. And the Hierophant talks very explicitly about what the right thing to do is, or what society expects of you. Or you might be feeling like there's a lot of people expecting things from you right now, and you're just like kind of melting over it, and you don't know how to show up either for yourself or balance out your schedule. So to me, it seems like getting insight from somebody who can kind of help you prioritize and figure out what works best for you is the way to go. Leo and Leo rising. Venus is in your 5th. Super romantic, fun, playful, great for dates, great for meeting new people, falling in love, children, creative projects. And it's in a square to Neptune in your 8th. Is your partner committed to you? Are you with somebody that doesn't want to commit, doesn't want to put a title on it? Are you questioning whether or not they're interested in other people? Are you starting to get baby fever? Venus in your 5th can bring baby fever with squares to Neptune in the 8th, and your partner not being totally clear with you about where they stand. Lots of confusion with lovers can happen, where it's just like, okay, is this sex or is this love? Like, what are we doing here? You know, it's a fellow fire sign. So it's like, even though Venus is in a square to Neptune, it's in a trine to your ascendant. So it's really about the possibility of what love and relationships can be. There is going to be an eclipse in your 5th house also at the beginning of December. So keep in mind that there still is this renewal period for your heart, for your creativity, for love, for romance that's coming. And if there's any doubts about whether or not there's security in a relationship beyond just the physical, I mean like the psychological, like do you feel like that person actually has your back? If you were to go through something or go through crisis or feel like you really need them in some way, would they show up for you and would they make you feel secure or safe? The Lovers. So it's definitely like sexual connection. It can also be talking about whether or not you're going back and forth, if somebody is for you, if there's a second option, if there's a second choice, if there's a Gemini that shows up in the mix. This does not necessarily indicate cheating at all, actually. This is just kind of talking about the physical connection of love and romance, and whether or not you see this person as like your divine partnership. There's definitely going to be a lot of communicating and talking about things, and like the need to kind of hash all this out. I get the impression that you're going to have your answer sometimes around the full moon that we're going to have in Gemini, which should be, I believe, in December. And it makes sense because it's going to oppose this house, and you're going to know whether or not you guys have the same goals in mind, and if you guys are on the same page. But this is saying for right now, it can be really sweet and really great and a great connection. For Virgo and Virgo rising, this is Venus in your 4th house, which is lovely. It's great for redecorating, getting new pillows, putting up some art, putting up some new photos, getting a new piece of furniture, spending time with family, bringing family over, you going and visiting home. But it's in a square to Neptune in the 7th. So there can be some sense of you being like, okay, I'm excited. I'm having this girl over and I'm going to make her dinner, and I'm going to clean the house and get her flowers and get everything together. And then she doesn't text me back. She doesn't show up. She vanishes, right? So that's the square to Neptune in the 7th. It can also be some sense of you wanting to introduce somebody to your family, but you have a partner that's like not so sure. They're like, I don't think we're official yet, or I'm not really ready to meet your mom. There's some friction. Now this will be more challenging for you, Virgo, because you do still have the North Node in your 10th. So it's trying to get you to think more about where the future of your life is going. And a lot of your stuff is still getting worked out to the new year in regards to relationships and how you feel on a heart level. I just get the impression that like you, especially with this, are going to have a hard time because you're going to feel like somebody's either ghosting you, or they're not showing up for you, or they're not making you feel emotionally secure. There can be overly idealizing partners from the past, and partners from the past can check in and then vanish, right? Ace of Wands. So on one hand, it's a new beginning. So this is nice because it can be saying that Venus is kind of laying the groundwork for a new place to live, a new emotional way of being, creating more of a fun, action-oriented environment. So certainly like Venus and Sag going through the 4th, it doesn't have to be just decorative pillows. It's like, I got a pinball machine, come over, let's have beer and pizza kind of stuff. So it's about creating a fun environment and keeping things moving, but it can also be about moving. So if you're looking for a new place to move, if you're looking for a new home, this can also be a really beneficial time. But be mindful, with the squares to Neptune, can be a really shitty real estate agent who's just like, the house is amazing, it's great, it's wonderful, here's the price, like everything's good. Get that inspection, right? Because there's going to be some people that will kind of try to like mislead you or kind of paint a picture of something that it really isn't. So it's saying take action. And if you're somebody who's looking to move, especially revolving around the eclipse beginning in December, may just happen. Libra and Libra rising. This is Venus in your 3rd house. So it's great for vehicles, traveling, reading, buying new books, taking new courses, language courses, making plans for traveling, right? So that's really great for you. This is also like social media or your gadgets, your day-to-day routine. And it's coming into a square with Neptune in your 6th. So to me, this seems like you need to be mindful that you may have a sibling that's going through a health issue. You may have a situation where there's a problem with a pet or a with somebody who's like a coworker or somebody who works for you. Like, you know, the dog walker may not show up this week, or there can be something where somebody who is doing some work for you like falls through and they're not reliable or they get sick. This is also a time for you to be really mindful when you're driving and when you're moving around. You need to be super aware of your environment. Neptune in your 6th can also be lower energy levels. And so when I see that come into a square with planets in your 3rd, it's like how you're managing that and whether or not you're like having enough physical activity, or if you're having too much. You're more likely to spill liquids at work on your gadgets. So be mindful of your coffee, be mindful of if you've got water bottles and stuff around, or if you drop something in the toilet or in the pool, be careful of that. Let's take a look. Ooh, the devil. It's about bad habits. So certainly Libra or Libra rising, it's like, are there things that you're just lacking of taking care of? Are you not showing up and like cutting sugar out of your diet? Are you not doing your laundry? Are you not making your bed? Are there things going on, especially because the devil deals with work. So there can also be like gossip going on about you, or you participating in gossip or like bad behavior at work. So watch for that. This is about breaking down old routines, breaking free, learning to let things go, negative thoughts, and falling victim to just like repetitive thought cycles that don't allow you to kind of break out of old ways of being. Watch for that, okay? Scorpio and Scorpio rising. Venus is in your 2nd house. Great for money, great for resources, great for making nice purchases. However, it is in a square to Neptune in your 5th. So there can be some overindulgence this month, Scorpio. Like you're spending a lot more on a child, or you're spending a lot more on a loved one. Maybe you make a big purchase that's like a grand gesture, and it's like romantic, but you're just kind of like, you know, I bought you this really nice car. You know, like that'd be a really nice gift, I guess. But you buy somebody a car and then they get the car and then they're like, this isn't the color that I wanted. Like that kind of stuff. Like you do something really nice for somebody and they may look at it and go like, yeah, that's not really what I wanted. Double and triple check before making a larger purchase, especially if it is for a loved one. And you may want to ask more about preferences, or you may just want to wait until after the square, like in the next week or so, before you make a purchase, right? There's going to be an eclipse in your 2nd house in December. So that's setting new goals for finances. So up until then, there can be some kind of like wild spending habits. There can also be a sense of you really thinking about wanting to invest in a hobby. And you might be like, yeah, I'm going to do it. You buy all the stuff and then you don't end up actually really using it. So just be mindful of your spending habits and where money is going. And I think Venus going into your 2nd, squaring Neptune, can be for some Scorpios kind of realizing like, oh, I really want to have, you know, this new business next year, and I can't be spending a bunch of money now. I need to be setting money aside so I can make that happen. So you can be kind of cutting those expenses. Some Scorpios are planning to have kids, so it's also realizing that they're going to start getting their finances in order. So when that happens, it's not as much of a shock. The World card. It does seem like it might be travel. So you might be spending money on travel this month. You might be anticipating going somewhere and kind of realizing that you need to kind of get a budget in order and know exactly how much money you need to bring with you or how much you're going to be spending. But the World card is a positive card. This talks about everything coming full circle. So it's talking about being supported so you can do the things that you want to do, and like lots of like good things coming to you. So maybe with this Venus-Neptune square, it's like super sweet and you can have your cake and eat it too. For Sag and Sag rising, this is Venus in your first house. Super great. Great for updating your look, your appearance, your outfits, your hair, practicing a lot of self-love, taking really good care of the body. However, it's in a square to Neptune in the 4th. So to me, it seems like, okay, you can do all the things that you want to the outside, but on the inside, if you're still not feeling good about yourself, it doesn't matter what you do, right? So it's like, especially for women, because Venus in the first house, when it squares Neptune, it's like, yeah, I got the, the nails and the fake boobs and the hair extensions and the this and the that. And like, I feel like I look really good. But Neptune in the 4th, when it squares, can be like this really sad, lonely, kind of isolated feeling of not feeling good enough, or not feeling like you're being emotionally validated, or still feeling like there's lingering feelings of being lost, or wondering where you're supposed to be. You may be disappointed by family members who don't compliment you or don't recognize some of the change that you've made, or maybe family who doesn't show up and make you feel supported this week. They may bail in some way, so that could happen. And there can be some situations where if you're personally making changes within your home, you can be a little disappointed. Like you'll buy something for the house and it shows up and you're like, it's not the right color. I don't like that. 9 of Wands. To me, this seems like not allowing the challenges that have happened for you this year get you down. Like you may feel like you're a little bit more weathered after some of the events that have taken place with the eclipses in your sign this year. But it's also like looking at how far you've come. So if you've had like lots of changes of improvements in your home life, your emotional life, your physical body, how you look, there can be still some sense of being like, yeah, but this is not perfect. And I would say this is really distorted. Realize that it's a lot about looking at what you've overcome, how far you've come, what you've managed to happen. Maybe you live on your own and that was a big accomplishment, but you don't own your house. And so you want to look at it as like glasses half full, and having real appreciation for where you've come from and where you're going to continue to go. Capricorn and Cap rising, Venus is in your 12th, which is a bit of a mixed bag. So on one hand, it can be great because there can be lots more opportunities for like bedroom pleasures, having sex, hanging out in bed, watching movies, eating popcorn, and spending time with somebody behind the scenes. Venus in the 12th is very spiritual. It's very great for, music, dance, creativity, photography, and it's getting ready to come into your personal sign. So there can also be a feeling of certain things winding down. Some of you guys have connected with people who are culturally different, or who live in a different place. And with the square happening from Neptune in the 3rd, it makes me wonder if like somebody stopped responding to your calls, somebody's not getting back to you, you're wondering, whether or not they're going to reach back out when you're going to see somebody again. Some mysterious character could have reached out to you online and you're going back and forth. And certainly when Venus goes through the 12th house, old patterns can kind of come up and they need to be ended, and they need to kind of end cycles. So some relationships can end for you. It's important also, I think, to be like writing, journaling, keeping a log, especially of your dreams, because if you're kind of in a point right now in your life where you're like at a crossroads and you're confused, lots of symbolism can come through your dreams with these transits, and it can really make sense to get it all out on paper. Talk therapy can be wonderful. Meditation can be wonderful. You also need to be more so careful with making travel plans. You're one of those signs that if you are planning on going overseas, or you're going somewhere and you want to buy tickets, read the fine print, double, triple check everything, get that trip insurance. There can be a sense of like communication breakdown, literally because of language barriers also. That's the other thing that you might see with this, is that you receive a message but you can't quite understand what it says, and you actually need somebody who can translate it for you. King of Swords. So this may represent somebody who reaches out to you. They want to talk to you about something. They want to communicate. They want to give you a message. It can be also just you being more connected to your higher self and kind of downloading information and being like, this doesn't make sense. Write it down. King of Swords can be an air sign that comes into your life that helps you negotiate something. He makes something extremely clear. He communicates well. He might help you learn something, publish something, write something. It's an important conversation, and it's really mastering your thoughts. And it might be about collecting yourself before having an important conversation. And so right now with Venus square Neptune, you're like, I have all these feelings, but I don't know how to get it out. And I don't know how to explain this to somebody. Just wait. Give it a little bit more time until Venus comes out of the square. Maybe wait until Venus dips into Capricorn and starts coming into some other aspects that's going to help you feel a little bit more grounded and like you can share your feelings with someone. Aquarius, Venus is in your 11th house of friendships, which is friends abroad, all different types of friends and groups and associations. So it can be a really fun time for socializing. It can be party time, but it's coming into a square with Neptune in your second. And the truth is that, you know, you really need to be on top of your money and your financial situation. You can have friends that are like, hey, fly to, you know, New York and come and spend the weekend with us. And you're like, yeah. And then you check your bank account and you're like, I don't know if I can swing that. There can be a sense of you signing up for things socially and with friends or networking with people about money and talking about investing or making connections with people online about investing. Be careful whose advice you buy. You may find that this month, or especially this week, there's somebody who's trying to sell you on something. A friend that's like, oh, I made all this money on this stock. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to buy the stock. And then the stock depreciates, right? So when it comes to finances and making financial investments or going and doing things with friends, what you're spending on things, there can be a sense of you kind of losing your budget, losing track of something, physically losing money, leaving your purse at a friend's house or in their car, it going missing. These kinds of things can happen. I get the Magician. So this can talk about suspicious behavior. This can talk about things appearing and vanishing. But the Magician is really kind of talking about making magic happen. So I guess the positive side of this is that you having also, you know, some of the aspects of Jupiter in your first house, you're more optimistic and you're like really about the vision. So it might be about investing in things and ideas that haven't materialized yet, having goals for abundance. Certainly, you know, Jupiter going into Pisces, into your second house in this next year is going to bring more abundance, more resources, more opportunities financially, but they're not here yet. So right now it's all hearsay. And I would just say, just be a little cautious with making investments. Realize that the Magician can be the car salesman that's like, yeah, it's got all the bells and whistles and I swear it's great. And you buy it and then a week later it breaks down. So when it comes to investing in things, especially groups, I think like memberships where, you know, it's like I had a client who had this the other day who was talking about making an investment into like a really big kind of prestigious posh club in Los Angeles and how much it was going to cost to be in this club. And I remember kind of looking at it going, it's not all that's cracked up to be. You're going to pay for this up front and then you're going to get there and you're going to realize that it's not really that great and the networking opportunities aren't that wonderful. So things like that, you know, do I buy the group membership? Do I buy the gym membership? Whatever. Just wait. Don't make any big purchases this week. And last but not least, Pisces. Pisces, you have Venus in your 10th house, which is great for awards, recognition, your career, being seen out there, people having a really high kind of perspective of you and like kind of like really seeing you as like the professional or just getting a lot of recognition for a job well done. But you've got Neptune in your first, so you're kind of like, it's a little too much exposure for me, or that's a little bit too much of me being seen, or I don't necessarily feel comfortable with all the praise, or I want to put it out there, but I want to hide. I don't want to like interact with people after I've dropped my album or after I've published my book. And you may find that your perception of yourself is way, way, way undervalued. Like there can be a sense of you not seeing yourself for the superstar that you are, you not seeing yourself for the beautiful, amazing person that you are, and you get all this recognition from people and you're like, really? I don't really think I'm that great. And it really can be an eye-opener for you in realizing that you do deserve all of the blessings that are coming from Venus in your 10th house. And it can also be that love can happen at work or through professional exchanges. There can be somebody who pursues you and is very interested in you, but you're kind of like uneasy and you're not sure and you don't want to mix business and pleasure. And you're like, I don't know, I'm just going to kind of quietly slip away and like not respond to that comment. Or, I don't think I'm going to respond to that email and they're asking me out to dinner. There can be things like that that are going on for you this month. The Moon card. So this is cool because, you've got a new moon that's coming in your 9th house. And I think that that's going to help you change your belief and your philosophy revolving around what relationships can be and how you connect with people, especially people that may be at a distance or people that you start talking to and then you start spending more time with them physically who might be elsewhere. But the Moon card is also things that your intuition are telling you, or if you're feeling the need to kind of take a step back and kind of hide and see how things play out or how things come together. You may be really waiting for the eclipse that's coming in Taurus. So this can also be talking about the next full moon that's getting ready to happen. Certainly in the next month within this lunar cycle, there's going to be shifts revolving around bringing more attention to you. I would just say be open to it. Listen to your intuition, listen to your dreams. If you feel a little bit more withdrawn, that's okay, but don't withdraw because you're not feeling good enough. Only withdraw if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're getting too much attention. Don't hide away and really pay attention to what your dreams or what your intuition is telling you. There can be some things going on behind the scenes where you're like, I don't want to count my chickens before I hatch. I don't want to celebrate before, the album does well, or I don't want to celebrate before the book is published. Like I kind of want to just wait because I don't want to jinx it. If you're feeling that way, that's okay. Just don't hide out for too long, okay? Hopefully that was helpful for you guys. Definitely going to be an interesting week ahead. Let me know how the Venus-Neptune squares played out for you. I'd be interested to hear. I bet there's going to be some really colorful stories about love, relationships, money, and perception things. Let me know how the Sun square Saturn plays out for you too. Although I don't really think that gets increasingly too important until Mars comes into a square with Saturn, but still look out for those limitations that are going to be happening that day. Mars square Saturn, Sun square Saturn, excuse me. So the 30th, so how that plays out for you on the 30th. Next week, I'm going to be back. I'm going to be doing a video on Saturday instead of Friday. That's where I'm going to do my live readings. So if you're a subscriber, make sure you check out my page this week. I'm going to update the time shortly. I'll be doing live tarot readings. So if you want to get a tarot reading from me, I'll drop the link so you can get on the list and you can reserve your reading. 1 or 3 card readings is what I will be doing. Ask anything you want. We're going to read cards live on air. Also, the eclipses are coming soon. I keep telling you guys this, but we're really going to feel it, especially because the next full moon will be an eclipse that's happening in Taurus. I have all the notes ready for those videos. I'm going to start creating them. I'm going to be making one that's separate outside of the astro weather, all about the eclipse in Taurus and all about the eclipse that we're going to have in Sag. I'll try to get that out soon. I'm traveling a lot and there's just a lot of changes in my schedule in the month of November. So I'm trying to get those out early so you still get those weekly videos. Even though I'm going to be gone, I'm leaving for almost 2 weeks. I am taking a break. But yeah, we're in the eclipse window, so you guys are definitely going to be feeling that, especially as we get into November. Now, next week on the channel, when we do the November 1st video, it's all going to be about the November ahead. Don't panic. It'll be ready. You're not going to miss much between now and then. If you haven't already checked out my Midheaven podcast, please do. It's a podcast that I do that's all about comedy, astrology, what's going on with current events, with my partner in crime, the Peace Dealer. We have a new video that comes out on Monday, the 25th, that's all about cancel culture. Don't miss it. And equally, if you want to subscribe to that channel, please do. I've got subscriptions now, so if you want to support the channel, everything helps. It goes towards production costs, lighting, sound, mics, editing, and also giving me the time to continue to keep doing research outside of my really busy schedule and create new content for you. The more that I get in subscriptions, the more that I can kind of segue and start shifting into creating more content and being able to start doing some education groups and being able to bring you guys videos all the time. So my goal is to kind of get this to the point where I can start kind of going more in that direction. So hopefully you're learning a lot and you're enjoying the channel. There's 3 different levels. Level 3 is going to get you access to getting a reading once a month from me during one of my lives, and you're going to get shout outs, but any donation helps. Check out the links below. You can find out all of my donation links. You can get subscribed to my channel. Equally, you can see my social media. I'm pretty active on Instagram, and you can follow me there. If you want to book a reading, I've got a couple openings left in November and into December. It's the busiest time of the year, so I'm usually booked anywhere out from like 4 to 10 weeks at a time. Do get on my books. Check out my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com if you'd like to get a reading with me. It's a combination of evolutionary and Western astrology, along with what I see intuitively looking at the tarot cards. So definitely a unique combination. I've been getting lots of new clients, which has been really fun, and I'm really loving being able to just connect with people all over the world. It's an awesome job. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys, and I will see all of you very soon. Enjoy your week, and you take care.